Hello and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, hi, I'm Cassidy. If it's not, thanks for always tuning into my videos. Today we are going over my TBR VETS. I have a problem where I have these books that sit on my shelf for a really long time and I don't read them, but I don't unhaul them, and they just sit there. So today we're making a list of TBR VETS, these books that sit on my shelf that I've had the chance to read a couple times and haven't read, but refuse to get rid of because I tell myself I want to read them, so that next year on Snakes and TBR Stacks I can have a little prompt that says TBR VET, and I have to come back to this video and pick a TBR VET, which is really scary, but also exciting. I actually have a pretty big list of these books. I didn't think I did, but I do. And I'm pretty good at unhauling books I'm not going to read. So a lot of these books are just books that have been on my TBR for about a year. Not all of them have been on there for like 3 years. I have 2 sci-fi books that are on this list. I have The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. This is a space book. Wow, it's really dirty. This one's probably one of the oldest books on my TBR. I've had it for a really, really long time. It's so short. I don't know how I haven't got into it. On October 12th, 1979, the most remarkable book ever to come out of the great publishing corporations of Ursa Minor and Earth was made available to humanity. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's an ordinary Thursday morning for Arthur Dent until his house gets demolished. The Earth follows shortly afterwards to make way for a new hyperspace bypass, and his best friend has just announced that he's an alien. At this moment, they're hurtling through space with nothing but a towel and an innocuous-looking book inscribed with the large, friendly words, "Don't panic. The weekend has only just begun." I think that this sounds like it's going to be a fun time. I don't know how I haven't gotten to it. The other sci-fi I have on this list is Beacon 23 by Hugh Howey. I actually really enjoy Hugh Howey. He probably could be one of my favorite authors just in terms of the fact that I've enjoyed every single one of his books. I haven't hated a single one of his books. I think that that's a feat in itself. I just think that when I pick up a Hugh Howey, I'm in for what Hugh Howey writes. This follows a world, a sci-fi, it's like our world. In this sci-fi, we follow a person who mans a lighthouse, and these lighthouses are there to help spaceships go through space. They're not meant to ever break, but there is a spacecraft that needs help, and Beacon 23 has broken. The person manning the lighthouse has to figure out why. I'm very excited for this. I just thoroughly enjoy Hugh Howey's writing. Sand is one of my favorites. I really adored it. And it's so short. Again, I need to get to it. Both these are really short sci-fis. I don't know why I haven't gotten to them yet. Before I tackle the giant fantasy list behind me, let's go over the 2 thriller books I have. I have The Kind Worth Killing by Peter Swanson. I believe this follows a man and woman who meet at the airport bar, and they plot to kill their significant others together. I think that this sounds interesting, and I heard it's like pretty much Peter Swanson's best book, so I want to read it. I hope I adore it, but I haven't gotten to it yet, and I need to so I can unhaul it because I hate this cover with a passion. Like, it's highlighter yellow. Why? And then we have Replica by Lauren Oliver, which is 2 girls, 2 stories, 1 epic novel turnover for Gemma's tale. So we have Lyra's tale this side, and when you flip the book, you have Gemma's tale. And they meet in the middle, and you can either read one half and then the other half, or you can read one chapter and one chapter and one chapter and one chapter. This idea just thrills me. It's so unique for a book, and I want to see if it works out for me. And yeah, but I haven't read it. Again, another book that sat on my TBR for a really, 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 really long time. Like, this one's long. And then I have 2 horror books. We have Stolen Tongues by Felix Blackwell. I've put this book on so many TBRs last year and still haven't gotten to it. So even though it hasn't been on my TBR necessarily the longest, the fact that I've had so many times to read this and hasn't, I think just puts it in that TBR vet spot, and now is on this list. Stolen Tongues follows, I believe, a couple who go up to a creepy mountain and then they start to hear things when the weather turns deadly. Felix discovers that his terrified fiance isn't just mumbling in her sleep, she's whispering back to the voices outside. Sounds interesting. Can you guess the other horror book on my TBR? It's Horror Store by Grady Hendrix. I have owned this for a really long time. This was the first Grady Hendrix I bought. I have since bought and read The Southern Book Club, My Best Friend's Exorcism, and The Final Girl Support Group. Yet I have not read this one yet. So I don't know what's wrong with me. I need to read this. This needs to go on a TBR. This follows a rip-off IKEA store that is haunted, and we follow an employee, I think, who has to stay the night. It looks like a literal IKEA manual, and I love it. I think that's why I haven't read it, because one, it's just like a hard book to read. I don't like the shape of it, and two, I'm scared I'm gonna hate it, and I don't want to unown this. Now we tackle the giant fantasy section. It's so big! The first one is Furyborn by Claire Legrand. This is one of the only YA books I still own and want to read. I don't know why, but I want to read this. It says, the world will fall and two queens will rise. I think what is really interesting to me about this one is that it follows two women who are destined to probably be the prophesized queens, but they happen centuries apart, which I just think is really interesting. It says that it follows a cosmic war that spans millennia, and their stories intersect, and the shocking connections between them ultimately determine the fate of the world and of each other, which I think sounds really cool. I know that there's elemental trials happening in this, and if the girl fails, she'll be executed, unless the trials kill her first, and then the other lady is a bounty hunter whose mother has vanished, and to find her, she joins the rebel captain and discovers that the evil at the Empire's heart is more terrible than she ever imagined. So rebellion and worlds apart. I really think that this sounds cool. I'm hoping that we will somehow see a female friendship in it, but I don't know if that's possible considering they're like centuries apart from each other. But I'm very excited to read this one still. I don't know why, but it is something I want to get to. The next one is The Raven Tower by Anne Leckie. This is also one of the books I've owned the longest. It has sat on this shelf for so long. It has survived so many unhauls, but I need to get to it. I think I just forget that this book exists, and I forget that I want to read it and how good it sounds when I read the synopsis. This one, the tagline says, gods meddle in the fates of men. Men play with the fates of gods, and a pretender must be cast down from the throne in the masterful first novel from Anne Leckie, who is the best-selling author and winner of the Hugo, Nebula, and Arthur C. Clarke Awards. I should try this. I really should just try this. I'm excited to. This is all I know about it because I'm not gonna read the synopsis, but just like that tagline sounds interesting. There's a second tagline actually. For centuries, the kingdom of Iridan has been protected by the god known as the Raven. I'm just excited for this. It just sounds cool. I think there's gonna be conversations on power and power struggles and politics, as well as what the nature of divinity can do and how it can shape our lives. I'm just really excited for this one. How have I not read it? It's a TBR vet that needs to be read. And then we have Witch Sign by Den Patrick, which first of all is blurbed by Robin Hobb. She says, the perfect mix of immediate action and characters you'll love, which is exciting, but also I have been burned by a Robin Hobb blurb before. I'm thinking about the bone chips. But this also follows a brother and a sister, which is something I adore. I love in my fantasy is that sibling relations. On the back it says it's been 75 years since the dragon's rule of fire and magic was ended, and out of the ashes the Salamander Empire was born, and now we're following this new empire where they're trying to hide the existence of arcane. Anything about the magic needs to be destroyed. It doesn't exist anymore. But of course the children of the empire are still being born with magical abilities, which is called the Witch Sign. So we have people that are sent out by the Empire to track down those children that have those magical abilities and to dispose of them. And when one of these Empire vigilantes come to our main character's town, he starts to worry for his younger sister, who has always been strange and odd and most likely has the Witch Sign, which I think just sounds fun. I'm excited for this. Again, another one that I just always forget I own, always forget I'm excited for. It has a lot of buzzwords for me, the siblings and the magic that's been hidden. I think that books that involve an empire that's trying to like hide magic or even just like dispose of knowledge to keep the empire whole and safe have very interesting conversations and dynamics in them, so I'm excited to read this. Then we have A Crown for Cold Silver by Alex Marshall, which we've seen on a couple lists now. It was on my big books list, it's on a grimdark list, but it has been on my TBR for a really long time. And I have not gotten to it yet, so I need to. So in The Crown for Cold Silver, all roads lead to war. This is a grim, dark, epic fantasy. It says it was all going so nicely right up to the massacre, which just sounds up my league. I think we're going to be following morally gray characters in this, maybe some villain characters, which is something I really enjoy. We're following 5 villains, 1 legendary general, a final quest for vengeance. I adore a vengeance story. I know that's something I really enjoy, and I'm excited to see the military aspects and the war aspects, and I hope it's really real. I hope it's gritty. I hope it's dirty. It's something I need to read. This whole list is just, making this list reminds me why I'm excited to read these books, and it makes you think, man, why haven't I picked these books up? But again, things just take more priority. Things sit on your shelf for so long and you forget about them. So I think that this list and this space will be really good for me. And then we have City of Lies by Sam Hawke, which is a Poison War novel. This has some big names that have blurbed it. We have Terry Brooks, we have Robin Hobb, we have Adrian Tchaikovsky, we have John Gwynne, and we have Kate Elliott. This gets me excited. The tagline for this is Poison, Treachery, Ancient Spirits, Sieges, the Poison Wars begin now. This follows our main character, who is the forgettable, charming friend to the heir to the kingdom. What the world doesn't know is he's secretly the poison master and he's protecting the ruling family at all cost. But when the chancellor succumbs to an unknown poison, an army besieges the city. Jovan and his sister now have to protect the heir. Another sibling dynamic. I love sibling dynamics. I think the idea of the poisons gives me a little bit of like Farseer vibes and an unforgettable main character. This sounds interesting to me. It was a Christmas present last year, so it's been on my TBR for a year, and I've not even came close to picking it up. That's the thing. I've not even thought once to myself, maybe I should pick up City of Lies, but I've also never thought maybe I should unhaul this. So it's on this list. I need to read it. The next book on this list is The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu, which I had plans to read this year. I actually believe it's in my series I wanted to start, and then more series came that just outlived this one. I think one of the reasons I haven't gone to this is honestly because I'm waiting for the Broken Binding to redo these editions and so that I can buy them. I don't want to read it first because what if I hate them? And then I will convince myself out of buying the pretty editions, but maybe if I have the pretty editions, I'll force my way through the series and then keep them forever. But everything about this series sounds interesting to me. It happens in a non-Western setting. It is about divided 7 kingdoms. We're getting those Asian influences, obviously, because it's non-Western. Well, not obviously because it's non-Western, because non-Western can be non-Asian, but I meant, like, it is an Asian-inspired fantasy, is all I needed to say. We follow 2 characters who are friends, and they end up waging war against the continent. They are leaders that are fighting the rebellion. I love rebellions. I like friendships. I hope it's a friendship and not a relationship. I love Asian-inspired fantasies. I literally just love non-Western-inspired fantasies in general. And this is also set in a word I can't say, an archipelago? I can never say this word. But it's like those little, like, island thingies that are mainly Asia. And I like that setting. I like water. I'm just really excited for this. You know what? I think this will sit on my TBR for a while, which is sad because I want to do the audiobooks, and the audiobooks have the same narrators for Sanderson and Wheel of Time and the Lycanis trilogy, and so I've been trying to give myself enough time before reading this to, like, forget the narration style, but it just keeps happening that I have to read books with the same narrators again and again and again, because I just read Lycanis, and now I'm starting Wheel of Time along, and it's a lot of the same narrator, and it becomes hard to separate sometimes the characters, but I really need to get to this. Maybe I should just try physically reading it. Then we have The Girl in the Mountain by Mark Lawrence, which should not be on this list. There's no reason for it to be on this list, but I've had a lot of abilities and lots of times to read this, and I yet haven't. I'm obsessed with the Book of the Ancestor, and this is the next series by Mark Lawrence, which has, I don't want to say nothing to do with the Book of the Ancestor, but it's like a completely different series, but it's in the same world as the Book of the Ancestor. It's called the Book of the Ice trilogy. I've read the first book. I liked the first book. Had a lot of fun with it. I've been waiting to continue. I have yet to continue. I don't know how that's happened. I literally don't know how that's happened. I've also heard that this book series becomes 3 POVs, which I learned in my 5-star audit is something I really, really like. I need to continue this. I need to read it. There's no reason I haven't read it, so it's on this list to helpfully give me a push to read it next year. And then we have His Majesty's Dragons by Naomi Novik. I actually don't know how long this has been on my shelf. I actually don't think it's been on that long, but it's a book I have started before but had not finished, and for no reason other than I just kind of got swept away in other reading plans. So I really do want to attempt to read this book and read the series. Again, it's just so short. I think that's why I forget about it. You know what, I tend to not read short books. There's just something in me that thinks I'm never gonna love them because I'm such a chunky book loving gal, but I should try more short books. I want to read more short books. So this is book 1 of the TBR series, which is an alternate history, I think, of the Napoleon Wars with dragons, which just sounds really interesting. And lastly, we have Burn Red Skies by Kirsten Espinosa Rosero, which is the indie book I've probably owned the longest. Which I don't know what that says, because I really want to read it. I know there's a dragon in it. In the shadows it listened and waited. The back synopsis is really nice. It's really short. It says, it starts with a rift that burns 1,000 scars into the sky. It makes the wind stop. It makes the stars go dark. It awakens an ancient beast, and with it a new reign of blood. It is the summoning, and at the heart of it is fire, which just sounds good. We follow Dove, who is forced into hiding after the Summoner's army blazes into her village, and from there she begins training in the elements with only one goal in mind, to find her brother. She just needs to get past the Summoner's army, and how can she slay a dragon that's already dead? It just sounds interesting. I'm excited to read this one. I need to read this one. I believe it was a SPFBO 7 finalist. Yeah, I need to read it. So there we have it, a really large list of books I need to get to, books that have sat on my shelf for way too long, books that I will hopefully get to sometime soon so that they can stop being TBR vets and we can have new TBR vets come, because it's a never-ending cycle. New books come, new books become TBR vets, new books come, new books become TBR vets. It's just a thing. It's just literally a thing. If you are excited for me to read any of these, let me know down in the comments down below. If you're not feeling chatty at all today, you can just leave me a couch emoji so that we can get comfy and cozy on the couch while we read our TBR vets. And then if you'd like to connect with me on other platforms, my Bookstagram, my Book Twitter, my Goodreads, and my Patreon are all linked in the description bar below. Have yourselves an absolutely remarkable day.